Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. I sat on the front porch, lost in thought. My mind wandered back to that fateful summer day that changed everything for our family, especially for my sibling. It had been an ordinary afternoon, the kind where the heat shimmered off the pavement and the cicadas buzzed incessantly in the trees. I'd been sprawled on the couch, flipping through a magazine, when I heard excited voices and laughter from the backyard. Curious, I peered out the window to see my brother Michael with our cousins, Emma and Olivia, who were visiting for the week. The three of them were huddled together, giggling and whispering. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but their animated gestures and mischievous grins piqued my interest. Unable to resist, I slid open the patio door and stepped outside. "What's going on?" I asked, approaching the trio. Emma, always the ringleader, turned to me with a sly smile. "Oh, nothing much. We were just daring Michael to do something." I raised an eyebrow, knowing full well that Emma's dares often led to trouble. "Oh, and what might that be?" Michael looked simultaneously nervous and excited, a blush creeping up his cheeks. He ran a hand through his shaggy brown hair, a habit he'd had since childhood when he was unsure of himself. Olivia chimed in, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "We dared him to dress up as a girl for the rest of the day." I blinked, surprised. It wasn't the kind of dare I'd expected. "Really? And you agreed to this?" I asked Michael. He shrugged, trying to appear nonchalant, but I could see the eagerness in his eyes. "Why not? Could be fun, right?" I didn't say anything, but a memory flashed through my mind. A few months ago, I'd accidentally walked in on Michael trying on one of my old dresses. He'd been mortified, begging me not to tell anyone. I'd kept his secret, of course, but I'd always wondered about that moment. Emma clapped her hands together. "Great, let's get started. Arwen, we're going to need your help." Before I knew it, I was being pulled into the house, the others following close behind. We made our way to my room, where Emma immediately began rummaging through my closet. Let's see," she muttered, pushing hangers aside. "Ah, perfect." She pulled out a pale blue sundress with delicate white flowers embroidered along the hem. "This will look amazing with Michael's coloring." Michael reached out, his fingers brushing against the soft fabric. There was something in his expression I couldn't quite place, a mixture of longing and trepidation. "Are you sure about this?" I asked him quietly, while Emma and Olivia debated accessories. He nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. "Yeah, I am. It's just a bit of fun, right?" I wasn't entirely convinced, but I didn't push the issue. Instead, I found myself caught up in the excitement of the moment, helping gather makeup, jewelry, and shoes. "Okay, Michael," Emma announced, her arms full of clothes and accessories. "Time for your makeover." The next hour was a flurry of activity. We shooed Michael into the bathroom with the dress and a pair of my old ballet flats. While he changed, Emma and Olivia set up an impromptu makeup station on my desk. When Michael emerged from the bathroom, there was an audible gasp from all of us. The dress fit him surprisingly well, clinging to his slim frame in all the right places. He'd always been on the smaller side for a guy, with delicate features that now, in this context, looked decidedly feminine. "Wow," Olivia breathed. "You look beautiful," Emma finished, her eyes wide. Michael blushed deeply, his hands fidgeting with the hem of the dress. "Really? You think so?" I nodded, still a bit stunned. "Yeah, you really do." Emma shook herself out of her surprise and grinned. "And we're not even done yet. Come on, let's do your makeup and hair." Michael sat obediently in the chair as Emma worked her magic with concealer, blush, and mascara. Olivia took charge of his hair, using my curling iron to create soft waves that framed his face perfectly. As I watched the transformation unfold, I couldn't help but notice the change in Michael's demeanor. The nervous energy from earlier had melted away, replaced by a sort of quiet joy. He seemed more relaxed than I'd seen him in years, his eyes bright and eager as he watched his reflection change in the mirror. Finally, Emma stepped back, admiring her handiwork. There, you're all done. Take a look. Michael stood and turned to the full-length mirror on my closet door. For a moment, he just stared, his lips parted in awe. The person looking back at him was undeniably beautiful. A young woman with flowing brown hair, delicate features enhanced by subtle makeup, and a sundress that complemented her figure perfectly. I don't know what to say, Michael whispered, reaching up to touch his face gently as if making sure it was real. You don't have to say anything, Olivia said softly. You look amazing. Emma nodded enthusiastically. Seriously, if I didn't know better, I'd never guess you weren't born a girl. Michael's eyes met mine in the mirror, a question in them that I couldn't quite decipher. I smiled encouragingly, hoping to convey my support without words. So, Emma said, breaking the moment of silence, what should we call you? You can't go by Michael like this? Michael bit his lip, thinking. I've always liked the name Maddie, he said softly, almost to himself. Maddie, I repeated, testing it out. It suits you. And just like that, Maddie was born. The four of us spent the rest of the afternoon in my room, laughing and talking as if nothing had changed, but I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow through my bedroom window, Emma glanced at her phone and sighed. We should probably head home for dinner soon. Maddie's face fell slightly, but she nodded. Yeah, I guess so. Wait, Olivia said, a mischievous glint in her eye. The dare was for the whole day, remember? That means you have to go down to dinner like this. Maddie's eyes widened, a mix of excitement and fear flashing across her face. I don't know if I can do that. What will Mom and Dad say? I put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Hey, it's okay. We'll be right there with you, and if anyone gives you a hard time, we've got your back. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders. Okay, let's do this. We made our way downstairs, Maddie leading the way with newfound confidence. I could hear the clatter of dishes from the kitchen, indicating that Mom was already preparing dinner. As we entered the kitchen, Mom looked up from the stove, a smile on her face. There you are, I was just about to call you down for... Her voice trailed off as she took in Maddie's appearance, her eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, nobody spoke. Maddie stood frozen in the doorway, her hands clutching the fabric of her dress nervously. Emma and Olivia hovered behind us, unsure whether to stay or make a quick exit. Finally, Mom broke the silence. Michael, is that you, sweetheart? Maddie nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, Mom, it's me. But I'm going by Maddie right now. Mom set down the wooden spoon she'd been holding and approached slowly, her expression unreadable. She reached out, gently touching Maddie's hair, then her cheek. You look beautiful, she said softly, a hint of wonder in her voice. Maddie's eyes filled with tears, and she threw her arms around Mom, burying her face in her shoulder. You are not mad? Mom hugged her tightly, stroking her hair. Oh, honey, of course not. I'm just surprised, that's all. But you look so happy. I felt a lump form in my throat as I watched the scene unfold. It was such a tender moment, filled with love and acceptance. I silently thanked whatever forces had blessed us with such an understanding mother. The touching moment was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. I'm home! Dad's voice called out. Maddie stiffened in Mom's arms, panic flashing across her face. Mom gave her one last squeeze before stepping back, a determined look in her eye. It's going to be okay, she said softly. I'm right here with you. Dad walked into the kitchen, his briefcase in hand and a tired smile on his face. Something smells good. I'm starving. He stopped short, his eyes landing on Maddie. The atmosphere in the room immediately tensed. Dad's smile faded, replaced by a look of confusion and then anger. What the hell is this? He demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Maddie flinched, taking a step back. I moved closer to her instinctively, ready to defend my sibling if necessary. Mom stepped forward, placing herself between Dad and Maddie. "Now, John, calm down. It's not what you think." Dad's face was turning red, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Not what I think? My son is standing there in a dress and makeup. What am I supposed to think?" "It was just a dare," Emma piped up, her voice small and scared. "We didn't mean any harm." Dad's glare silenced her immediately. He turned back to Maddie, who was trembling slightly. "Michael, go upstairs and change." "Now." Maddie hesitated, looking to Mom for guidance. Mom nodded slightly, a silent message passing between them. With a last glance at me, Maddie hurried out of the kitchen and up the stairs. As soon as she was gone, Dad rounded on Mom. "How could you let this happen? What kind of message are we sending here?" Mom stood her ground, her voice calm but firm. "The message that we love and accept our children, no matter what. John, did you see how happy Michael looked?" Dad scoffed. "Happy? He looked ridiculous. This isn't right, and you know it." I couldn't stay silent any longer. "Dad, it's not hurting anyone. And Michael really did seem happier than I've seen in a long time." Dad's eyes snapped to me. "Don't tell me you're encouraging this too. I'm just saying maybe we should listen to what Michael wants," I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear churning in my stomach. The argument continued, voices rising and falling as Mom and I tried to reason with Dad. Emma and Olivia had long since retreated, mumbling apologies as they slipped out the front door. Eventually, the sound of footsteps on the stairs silenced us all. Michael appeared in the doorway, back in his usual jeans and t-shirt. His face was scrubbed clean of makeup, but his eyes were red and puffy, evidence of recent tears. Dad nodded approvingly. "That's better. Now let's forget this whole thing happened and have dinner." But as we sat down to eat, the tension at the table was palpable. Michael barely touched his food, pushing it around his plate listlessly. Mom kept shooting worried glances between him and Dad, while Dad steadfastly ignored the elephant in the room. I wanted to say something, anything to break the uncomfortable silence, but I couldn't find the words. So we ate in silence, the only sounds the clinking of cutlery against plates and the ticking of the clock on the wall. After dinner, Michael retreated to his room without a word. I helped Mom clean up, both of us lost in our own thoughts. As I was putting away the last of the dishes, Mom touched my arm gently. "Arwen," she said softly, "I need you to keep an eye on your brother. I'm worried about him." I nodded, understanding the unspoken request. "I will, Mom. Don't worry." That night, I lay awake in bed, replaying the events of the day in my mind. The joy on Maddie's face when she saw herself in the mirror, the tenderness of Mom's acceptance, the anger in Dad's eyes. It was all so confusing, yet somehow I felt like we were on the cusp of something important. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a silent promise to myself and to my sibling. No matter what happened, I would be there. I would support them, protect them, and love them unconditionally, because that's what family does. The next few days passed in a haze of tension and uncertainty. Michael spent most of his time holed up in his room, only emerging for meals or when Mom coaxed him out. Dad seemed determined to pretend nothing had happened, but his forced cheerfulness felt hollow and strained. I tried to talk to Michael several times, but he always brushed me off with a quiet, "I'm fine," or "Don't worry about it." But I could see the sadness in his eyes, the way his shoulders slumped when he thought no one was looking. It was on the 4th day after the incident, as Dad had taken to calling it, that things came to a head. I was in my room trying to focus on summer reading for school when I heard raised voices from downstairs. Curious and concerned, I crept down the stairs, pausing just out of sight of the living room. I could see Michael standing in the center of the room, his fists clenched at his sides. Mom and Dad were on the couch, Dad's face red with anger, Mom's etched with worry. "I can't keep pretending," Michael was saying, his voice trembling but determined. "This isn't just some phase or a stupid dare, this is who I am." Dad stood up abruptly, towering over Michael. "No son of mine is going to be a freak! I won't allow it!" "John!" Mom gasped, reaching out to grab Dad's arm. "Don't you dare speak to our child like that!" Michael flinched at Dad's words, but stood his ground. "I'm not asking for your permission, Dad. I'm telling you who I am. My name is Maddie, and I'm a girl." The silence that followed was deafening. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment of truth. Dad's face went through a range of emotions: shock, disgust, anger, and finally a cold, hard mask of disapproval. "No," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I won't accept this. You need help, Michael, professional help." Maddie shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "The only help I need is your love and support. Why can't you see that?" Mom stood up then, moving to stand beside Maddie. She wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "I see it, sweetheart, and I love you no matter what." Dad looked between them, his expression hardening. "If this is the path you choose, then I can't be a part of it. I won't stand by and watch my son destroy his life." With that, he stormed out of the room. A moment later, we heard the front door slam, followed by the sound of his car starting up and peeling out of the driveway. Mom and Maddie stood there, holding each other and crying softly. I couldn't bear to watch anymore. I retreated to my room, my mind reeling from what I'd just witnessed. Hours passed, and Dad didn't return. The house was quiet, an oppressive silence broken only by the occasional muffled sob from Maddie's room. As night fell, I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked gently on her door. "Maddie, can I come in?" There was a pause, then a soft, "Yeah." I pushed open the door to find Maddie curled up on her bed, her eyes red and puffy from crying. Without a word, I crossed the room and sat down beside her, pulling her into a hug. "I'm so sorry," I whispered, stroking her hair. "I heard everything." Maddie clung to me, her body shaking with fresh sobs. "Why can't he just accept me? Why does it have to be like this?" I didn't have an answer for her. All I could do was hold her, offering what comfort I could through my presence. We stayed like that for a long time, until Maddie's sobs quieted and her breathing evened out. "What happens now?" she asked softly, her voice hoarse from crying. I pulled back slightly, meeting her eyes. "Now we move forward, together. You're my sister, Maddie, and I love you. Nothing will ever change that." A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth, the first I'd seen in days. "Thank you," she whispered. That night marked a turning point for our family. Dad didn't come home, and the next day, Mom received a text saying he was staying with a friend for a while. She didn't share the details with us, but the tightness around her eyes told me all I needed to know. But even as our family fractured, a new strength emerged. Mom threw herself into researching gender identity and transition options. She scheduled appointments with therapists and doctors, determined to give Maddie all the support she needed. I watched in awe as Maddie began to blossom. With each passing day, she seemed to grow more confident, more comfortable in her own skin. She started wearing more feminine clothes around the house, experimenting with makeup and letting her hair grow out. It wasn't all smooth sailing, of course. There were days when the weight of Dad's rejection hit hard, leaving Maddie in tears and Mom looking lost and worried. There were awkward moments as we all adjusted to new pronouns and a new name. And there was the constant fear of how the outside world would react. But through it all, we stuck together. Mom, Maddie, and I became a tight-knit unit, supporting each other through the ups and downs. And slowly but surely, life began to settle into a new normal. As summer drew to a close, Maddie made the decision to start the new school year as herself. It was a daunting prospect, but she was determined. The night before the first day of school, I found Maddie standing in front of her mirror, smoothing down the front of her new blouse nervously. "You look great," I said, leaning against the doorframe. She turned to me, a mix of excitement and fear in her eyes. Do you really think so? What if everyone laughs at me? I crossed the room and stood beside her, both of us looking at our reflections. Anyone who laughs is an idiot who doesn't deserve your time. You're beautiful, Maddie, inside and out, and you're so brave for being true to yourself. She leaned her head on my shoulder, a gesture that had become familiar over the past weeks. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. I know, I said, wrapping an arm around her. But you're not alone. Mom and I are here for you, always, and I bet you'll find more allies than you expect. Maddie nodded, taking a deep breath. You're right. I can do this. Hell yeah, you can, I grinned, giving her a playful nudge. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.